Okay, so how many of you weren't here earlier?
Let's go to the bottom.
Great. Okay, good. How many of you weren't here for the first session of this? That's all right, we're still getting people, folks coming in. Okay. So, I'm just going to review the basic premise for those of you that weren't here of what we looked at to start with. So, those of you within the 5-element lineage in particular tend to look at the Shenko cycle picture because the 5-element chart looks like this mostly. And you see there is a rent asunder between the heart and the small intestine and the triple energizer pericardium. This only applies to the Shen co-cycle. This does not apply to when we were looking at the fire elements. This is the map of the 5 elements correctly displayed, where we have yin aspects of fire and yang aspects of fire, and contains all 4 officials, but they are not rent asunder. Neither does the split between heart, small intestine and triple energized pericardium apply to either the 12 official map. So in Chinese medicine you have to keep putting on different pairs of glasses, because in the 12 official context, we have the heart as the first official, followed by lung, liver, gallbladder, and what is called zhong. And then we have spleen, stomach, large intestine, small intestine, kidney, triple energized, and bladder. So you will note there is no such thing as a pericardium official, as Claude Law writes in one of his books with Elizabeth Hooray for the death of the pericardium, because it never existed in the first place. There is no official called the pericardium. And when we talk about the 5 zang and 6 fu, 5 is always the manifestation of life. This is the healthy presentation, incarnation of life and all communication between the 5 aspects. 6 is like the organization and management of the life. When we talk about the 5 zang and the 6 fu, there is the heart zang, and the heart zang includes 3 aspects. Shin, heart or heart-mind, is maybe the most correct translation. Shin Bao Wo. Shin is heart. Bao is like wrapping, enveloping. You find this also associated with the concept of the uterus. And Luo, as is the same as the Luo channels, connecting channels. And Tanzhong. So all 3 of these, when you say the heart zang, we are talking about Shin, Shin Baluo, and Tanzhong. When we talk about the 12 officials in the 11 positions, Shin and Shin Baluo are the heart official. The heart is Lord and Sovereign. The radiance of the spirit stems from it. And Tanzhong is the 5th official. Tanzhong is resident and envoy. Joy and elation stems from it. So the premise is that some of you are struggling with some patients, and given I spend a lot of my time doing consultations, second opinions for practitioners, I know this is a clinical reality, because either within a 5-element paradigm of treating aphasia, you have too much of a sense of you either treat triple energized pericardium or you treat heart, small intestine, and it's black and white either or. So in assisting this particular fascia to manifest their authentic nature, it may not be clinically working, or either within or from other lineages, you are trying to deal with pathophysiology that comes from what you might either call heart or pericardium, given the pericardium doesn't exist. And you've got this idea of either treating the pericardium channel or the heart channel, and that you don't do both. This may not work for treating pathophysiology either. So this is applicable to irrespective of whether you're a 5-element practitioner or practicing from a different lineage with a different way of making a diagnosis and a treatment. Try not to see them as a Ren to Sunda, except in the Shen co-cycles. So we're translating this Shin, heart, Shin Balwo, heart wrapping, connecting. That is often talked about as the heart protector. When you look at a different way of talking about this Zhong, which is not the correct Chinese pronunciation, I apologize for my lack of proper Chinese. It's talked about as the heart governor or heart master in some of Claude and Elizabeth's books, for example. And Tanzhong can't really be translated. It's chest chi. It's the C of upper C of chi. It is Ren 17. So these two would be the first official, both the heart, so the heart and the heart protector. So here we have the diagram. The minute I draw the heart, inside is the heart, Shin, but this is Shin Balwo. So the heart has its protection around it. It comes as a package. You cannot separate Shin from Shin Balwo. But the heart, Shin, is the Lord, innate, inborn authority. This is the void. So in Chinese medicine, it talks about the void within the void. I think somewhere I have a little quote, maybe. Can't find it right at the moment. Never mind. And this is the void. This is the protection that comes with it. This is the heart as Lord. This is the sovereign. The heart actually does nothing. The void is forever empty, waiting to be filled by the spirits. It is Shin Balwo, the heart protector, the origin of the Mai, the network of circulation that regulates the kingdom on behalf of the heart. This is why these two come together. And this is why you have a major problem if you separate heart from the inner aspect of the pericardium, as you used to call it, can still call it, but just realize it's the heart official. And then we have Tanzhong basically circulating the blood through the Mai, also called the Mo, which means the spirits circulate in the blood, governing, if you allow it, all of your speech, all of your actions. So this is why we need to just stop and clinically think, hang on a minute, maybe in this clinical situation, theory informs practice, but practice drives theory. Outside of the Shenko cycle, there isn't a Ren to Sunda between the heart zang, which includes all three of these, between what you might call the heart and the pericardium. The pericardium is the correct name for the channel, not for the official. So that's basically in a nutshell what we did. I think they're going to put this up on the site, so if you want to go into it in a little bit more detail with me, you can listen to that. Okay, and the other thing that we had just got to before the break was starting to have a little bit of a look at what creates pathophysiology, either for a phi CF or indeed for someone who's a different CF. I'm using CF in the context of the person's authentic nature, their shings, CF and withins as their authentic nature, courtesy of the benevolence of Tao, not as the source just of pathology. So the predominant etiology which could adversely impact phi CF's authenticity, or either the heart official or tan zhong official in someone, if you're not working within the context of the CF, or you are working within the context of the CF, but you have direct pathology adversely impacting other officials that may or may not have anything to do with the CF and withins. We looked at the primary causes of excitation and sadness out of the 7 internal causes of disease, and we looked at heat, external pathogenic factor, or internal fire, and then severe blood loss, which may be associated in a more minor level with the effects of fright or shock, which is again as an internal cause of disease. So that's where we got to. We're now going to move on to look at both the context of phi CF. How do you know which points, which combination of supporting the person, the 3 aspects of the heart zang with 2 channels, which different lineages have used differently, and then in terms of any pathophysiology, which channels, as a five-element practitioner within the context of the CF, the rest of you according to your diagnostic criteria and then your appropriate treatment principles, how do we know which to use? So, let's just go back at the beginning of this. So this is new to everybody in terms of just getting you to think about it maybe a little bit differently. Let's just start off with the Shen co-cycle reality and the idea of transfers and everything. So when we are talking about Shen co-cycle, what you have learned with small intestine, heart, and triple energizer, and what are we going to call this? The non-existent pericardium. So let's put that there in terms of the channels. That was just really a joke. A rent asunder. Yes, this is true in some ways. So even within this context, it's not literally true, and you already know that, but you may not know that you know it. So if, for example, you have a very peculiar situation where normally it will go this way round, here we have a major issue with the blood affecting liver and heart, and this is likely in this instance to be this. This is crashed down to this, and these are probably like this, common clinical reality with lots of labels from Western medicine. And the person is a fire CF who you are treating on pericardium triple energizer fire, and if you have a major discrepancy between heart, small intestine and triple energized pericardium, this is not a good gig. So you would get into thinking of, okay, now I've got to do with the multiple transfer. How do I do that? Because a lot of you probably are not doing very many transfers, right? In the good old days, transfer is the best treatment. But you would do a transfer basically from the heart to the pericardium, which means you either have to start in the pericardium and make a connection with wood and metal and then come back this way, or from pericardium through the kidney, spleen, going to the heart. So yes, it's true. You can't take from the heart and give to the pericardium, not that you're really trucking lorry loads of chi around anyway. But just think about it for a minute. You have an earth. So now we have a different pulse picture. You have an earth, and you do the tonification points. So that means you do spleen 2 and stomach 41. Moxa and Neil. That immediately should tell you that there can't be a rent asunder between the 4 fire officials, because you don't put needles for a regular simple transfer in the tonification points and say, I want you to take this from the heart, small intestine, or I want you to take this from the triple energized pericardium. You just literally, that's because you're not trucking lorry roads of chi. As you're using what basically Claude Lard calls points of compenetration or interpenetration. You are working with restoring the homeostatic balance of the engendering, the zhong cycle. So immediately, even in this context, it's really only if you did a transfer from triple energizer to small intestine or small intestine to triple energizer that you have to go around the houses and do your multiple transfers. So that kind of gets rid of, even in that situation, there is really a split. Okay, so let's start off looking at working with a fire CF. A person who has the predominant, authentic nature of summer, ceremony, teenage, wafting, spreading about, midday, joy and elation, the blood, all of the correspondences of fire. So let's just tighten up one thing, because sometimes some of you get into thinking that when you see this, so old style would be that, or this, okay. 5 in in-house language would stand for the pericardium, or fire pericardium, and then let's just say we've got wood and water as the withins, for example. You get into talking about pericardium CF. So this is not correct. You are a fire CF. Your patient is a fire CF. Don't mix the 12 officials up with the CFs of the elements. The elements are within are the elements and within. Your CF is an element, and your first within is another element, and your second within is another element. That would indicate that in Leamington language there are more difficulties manifesting health within the pericardium, so you may have to put a little bit more emphasis on addressing the difficulties of the pericardium. So try not to see the CF as being the officials, it's the elements, because this is really important in terms of how you're going to treat the person. Okay, so the classic 5 elements speak is that until you know better, you always start by treating triple energizer and pericardium. You always treat the yin and yang aspects of the element. Yes, this is advisable, because you're not really treating the functions of the triple energizer and pericardium in the 12 officials who regulate the 24-hour clock, the movement of physiology in the space of a day. Here we're talking about you are trying to treat the element, the body, mind, spirit of the element, because your diagnosis is that of the element. And you're trying to see if these channels, this yin-yang pairing of channels, will enable the person to start walking more easily the width of the health of their CF. Always see the person beyond the pathology. See who they truly are in health. And if in the first 2-3 treatments, the gig is colour, sound, odor, emotion becomes much clearer, and all of the pulses change in the absence of any obstructions, e.g. obstructions through primary channels or whatever, all of the pulses should change. That doesn't mean go up in volume, okay? Be really careful that you don't think the aim in life is to have all 12 check pulses. If someone walks in the clinic with 12 check pulses, they probably need to go to the ER. So don't think more volume is better and less volume. They need to change. Some will go up, some will go down, and then it will find a balance, right? Then your initial diagnosis is a working hypothesis that the person is a fire CF. Within 2-3 treatments, treating triple energized pericardium seems to be working. Great. What that tells you is stop worrying about what the CF is. If it isn't the CF, and sometimes you are, the most likely mistake is it's one of the withins, it will run out 3 months down the line. But while you're treating that in those 3 months, it will still be helpful, and then it will run out. So don't sweat that. If it's not right at all, then it's going to do nothing in the first couple of treatments. So you validated the person as a fire CF. Just because you then start seeing some green and hearing a secondary shouting, this is good. You're getting to know your patient. You're seeing more things. You're starting to see indications from other elements, e.g. the withins, or something that is a little bit pathological that isn't yet being addressed just by treating fire. Don't flip the CF. But the rule always was, if within 2-3 treatments, the triple energized pericardium is not doing anything, then you must, before you decide to get clever and call the person an CF, because you're more prone to say, you know, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing, than, oops, maybe I just need to tweak what I'm doing. Okay, you must switch to the heart, small intestine side of fire, and then within 2-3 treatments, if that doesn't work, then you can say, okay, oops, they're not a fire CF, right? But if that then works, then you stick on that. And then we have people who for 20 years treatment only treated on triple energized pericardium or heart, small intestine, and they come in and they say, well, you know, despite being a 5-month practitioner, I've never really noticed that much benefit from my own treatment, even though I'm obviously a fire CF. Oh dear. So why does that happen? So this is the most common clinical reality that explains this. So, we're going to put the yang aspects up here of fire. And now here, we're going to put these. When you're treating someone on triple energized pericardium, and you are basically using points on triple energizer and pericardium channels, this may not reach treatment of Shin Bao Wo, the heart protector. For some people, points on the pericardium channel will treat the whole range. That tends to be where the main issues truly are in Tan Zhong. The issues are in the circulation of the blood around the Mai and the movement, therefore, by the movement of the spirits of joy and elation. So this could be your typical fire CF where they're pretty chilly, especially in both extremities, hands and feet, where they have a real problem being in large groups of people, of creating wider relationships. It's like they're more looking for more intimate situations, and that real spreading of elation is really difficult. They can do joy, internal joy, but they find it really difficult to be in a bigger context. You get incredible performance anxiety, you know, so the idea if they get invited to go to a party where they know that 90% of the people they're not going to know, the chances are they're not going to go. You know, the reality is by treating Tan Zhong through the pericardium channel, by using certain points, by bringing in 338, or which is Chinese bladder 43, same thing, just a difference in numbering, equals bladder 43. Blood of the body, blood of the mind, blood of the spirit. Your person may be doing great. You're getting the blood circulating. This enables them to feel more confident. We're talking, it's like they start warming up, they fill out, because of course blood nourishes, functions of blood are to lubricate, nourish and house the spirits, and it works. Great. If it's working, don't muck it up, don't get clever. Okay, so if you're treating triple angios pericardium and everything is working, great, carry on. However, sometimes the reason it works for a little bit is because of your particular choice of points that you are using on the pericardium. And you don't realize that actually that is treating the heart official. Shin Bao Wo. So you do one treatment on this person on triple angios pericardium and they feel great. And the next one, it's not so great. And then the next one also isn't so great. And then the next one works again. And this is where a lot of the time, right, you land up saying they're not a fire CF. Oops, oops. So it is highly likely, for example, that in those two treatments that worked, you had pericardium 6 inner frontier gate, as you can call it. Because pericardium 6 directly treats the heart official. So just remember, when we talk about the heart official, that is Shin and Shin Bao Wo, not Tan Zhong. So because we've got this pericardium idea, and we don't realize that the pericardium, as we talk about it, the outer aspect of that is the wider circulation of the spirits and the blood around the Mai, but the inner aspect is more what we talk about as the heart protector. It's like if we're not seeing that this treatment is working, because we are actually using points on the pericardium that is treating the heart official, if you then don't use that, so if you're using lots of other points but not the points that treat the heart, those treatments won't work as well. And then very often you flip off fire. Because you may try and go to the heart small intestine, but the small intestine is going to do nothing, because really the person is better being treated through triple energized pericardium. And the inner aspect of the heart zang as well. You need to be bringing it more in directly to treating Shin Bao Luo. So that's how you can land up starting to treat the person as a first yes, and then you try triple energized pericardium, that doesn't seem stable. You go to heart small intestine, that does nothing. So now we're chasing rabbits down the endless warren for 20 years. Or we stick to treating triple energized pericardium, but we don't realize why the treatment is so hiccupy. And then unfortunately, it's very easy to blame the patient. It must be something you're doing, because it can't be my treatment. So why don't I try my treatment works, right? Like, bloody patient, that's not what you'll say to the patient, but it may be what you think sometimes, right? It's like, they must be screwing it up, you know, because I don't get why this isn't working. Ooh, the patient is always right. Unfortunately, it's us that are flawed. So, that's a common phenomena. Or, another phenomena is that you're treating the person on the triple energized pericardium, and they're definitely a fire CF, but it doesn't do anything really about their levels of vulnerability. Now, any of you in this room who've been in practice for a long time, can you think of patients where you may have been treating them for a year or two, and they are doing so much better in lots of ways, but they still say, I'm completely vulnerable. It's like they still can't get over that. And that's again because the wrapping, connecting of the heart is the heart official, is the heart zang. So, it's not most clinically common that you will be treating the person appropriately on the heart, small intestine side of fire, and need to bring in more clear things for tan zhong, because a lot of the time you are actually doing that by the way you treat the person. Normally, if you are treating on heart, small intestine side of fire, you're more likely to be including in your treatment Ren 14 and Ren 15 together, for example, or Ren 8 and Ren 14, and Ren 8 will treat the Tanzhong aspect, or you bring in 338 and 339, i.e. bladder 43 and bladder 44. So it's less common that you're not somehow impacting the aspects of Tanzhong. But if you have serious pathophysiology in the circulation of the blood through the Mai, and you only treat on heart, small intestine, that also may not work. But in terms of the person, the way you treat them, more often than not, it has more of an effect. It's much more common that this is an issue when you're treating triple energized pericardium side of fire, and you're not getting to that inner aspect. So, this person, common presentation is they are very internalized. So your classic picture, right, of triple energized pericardium is someone who there's not that many seriously extrovert biases. There are a few from the withins. But normally, you know, they can get extrovert for a very short space of time if they're with very close, intimate friends. They tend to be quieter, and then they'll laugh. They can rise up, but they probably can't sustain it. But when they laugh, it really does come off and it catches, right? So you see them lift, even if they're not sustaining it, you know, so that's where they're comfortable, and as you engender warmth and feed joy, they respond, right? So, you know, the classic thing is I can pick someone in the room and start smiling at them. Immediately they start going pink, and it's like, oh no, don't look at me, Nikki. Oh my God, you're going to ask me to do something. By now we've got it activated, and they're smiling and they're laughing, and some of you in this room are doing this, right? Here's your classic triple energized pericardium side of fire. And you're going to have some fire chefs who are sitting there, and it's like you can bust a gut to kind of, you know, get the heart protector going boom, 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 and the colour going up, and, you know, you're trying to get them to go beetroot, and it isn't kind of working. They're much more solid, much less volatile, less performance anxiety, less fluttery, wobbly, less external manifestation of the blood moving around the mind, which is what you see when we're really talking about Tan Zhong. Because really, the issue is the heart is Lord, that's Shin, and sovereign. The radiance of the spirits comes from it. It's the Shin Balwo that is the sovereign, who actually rules the kingdom from that internal quietude, from around the heart. So you don't see the movement of the blood and the spirits flashing around and wafting, right? It's much more of an internal thing. But that can be seriously adversely impacted by emotional realities, by sadness, no over the heart, which makes the chi disappear, or by excitation in the past, in particular, which has lost anchoring with the essences. So the person is chronically exhausted at the level of the spirit, Jing Shan. It's undermined. There's not enough riders for the horses, the spirits. So they're more isolated, more internally unable to trust or move forward. So you think, oh, there isn't any joy and elation. Well, that's not because of Tan Zhong. It's because they've lost that sense of that the heart comes with its protection, and that regulating the kingdom from within, you know, can happen with ease. So they tend to be a little bit different in presentation. And that's a completely different presentation when someone is clearly on heart, small intestine side of fire, and that's where you're treating. Okay. And if it's mainly the heart, then we're talking about the heart taking charge of the beings. The heart, the born innate authority of the void of the heart. What you see is a lack of quietude in the void of the heart, so that this word is not accurate, but it's what we seem to see. They have lost control of themselves or their life. So you take them in the treatment room and the curtains are open and they need to close the curtains. But if you close the curtains for them before they came in, they would open the curtains. If you ask them to sit on a chair, they get on the couch. If you ask them to get on the couch, they sit on the chair. If you send them into room 12, you find them in room 16. Right? This is funnily enough less affected by excitation and sadness. This is where the greatest pathology, the major injury for the heart comes from a heat or fire, or major blood loss, or shock. So excitation and sadness very often can have an effect pathologically on the heart, but more we're talking about tan zhong, xin bao wo, whereas the more we go down the road of heat or anger, this is where anger can have an impact on the heart. It more takes down the xin aspect, the heart, xin, rather than xin bao wo or tan zhong. So that's why I was saying earlier, if you know the etiology a little bit, that can help you negotiate how to treat. So, here's the options for you, clinically. I would way rather you are clinically effective than politically correct. Okay. So, that means the buck stops with you. You need to decide how you are going to treat this person, this CF, in a way that works. As you get better at understanding the points, it is easier. This is always true. As you get better at what you're doing, particularly understanding the nature of the points operating at body and mind and spirit. The problem with calling it the spirit of the points is some points enter through the body and then affect the mind and the spirit. Some enter directly through the spirit and then affect the mind and the body. So when we say spirit, it kind of sometimes mucks it up. As you get better at treating the body, mind, spirit nature of the points and the point combinations, it is much easier for you to treat everything, or most things, or a lot of things, through the CF. But until you can do that, you may not pull it off. Don't worry about it. Work out what is going to work for your patient, right, in your process of improving. You had a question.
Yeah, I just got a bit lost about the patient who was doing well by being treated on pericardium burnout, but remained really vulnerable.
Right.
Was that then?
It's because that's because xin bao wo is the heart official, not tan zhong official. It may not do something about that heart protecting aspect. It's not, you're somehow not strengthening the relationship of xin bao wo and xin, even though you're effectively treating tan zhong very well. So, here's the game. There are points on the heart channel that speak to the different aspects of xin bao wo and tan zhong. There are even more points on the pericardium channel that speak to Shin, Shin, Bao, Wo, and Tan, Zhong. So if you can negotiate that, it's not that someone who you're treating on pericardium and triple energizer, you're going to use most of or all of the points on the heart. That's not necessary, okay? But you may want to bring in one or two, for example, on the heart channel to help you get the effect on Shin Bao Wo more clearly. And even if you're not going to directly, if that doesn't sit with you, that's fine. It's your clinical choice. What I would strongly suggest you do, even if you don't cross over the points, that you more clearly identify this is an issue of Shin Bao Wo, and that you use points that treat the heart official, i.e. Shin and Shin Bao Wo, that are not on either the heart or the pericardium channel, that are on the inner bladder line or the outer bladder line or the kidney channel or the renmai or the dumai. But you consciously, in your treatment, are including indirect ways to treat the heart official, because you're trying to influence the health and the width of Shin Bao Wo. Does that make sense? So we can look at direct channel treatment, and then we can look at indirect channel treatment, either way. And then we can look at some specific protocols for the specific etiologies. So let's start with those. Let's start with sadness. So, the scream of no with multiple exclamation marks over the heart. This is the character for sadness. This is not lack of joy. This is one of the 7 internal causes of disease, not the joy, lack of joy spectrum of the will of life, of summer, of fire. So, there are so many patients who have long-term chronic sadness. It may be their mother died when they were 5. It may be that their best friend at kindergarten had leukemia and just suddenly disappeared. It could be they had a horrible family and didn't get on with their parents. And basically their friend was their cat. Or something which made them say no. In that can come some of your aspects of mental cruelty or abuse, body, mind, or spirit, that made them say no to life. And you may be seeing that person 40 years later. And it may be they were 15 and they were going through the reality of starting, to get interested in boys or girls or whatever, and some tragedy happened. And since then, they have not felt able to go into an intimate relationship. And that may be including or not sexual relationships. Maybe they don't have friends, or their dog died when they were 6, and they dearly love animals, but they will not let themselves have another dog. And they avoid people with dogs. It's like they're shutting themselves in. This can go to agoraphobia, locked in. This can be minor and show in certain areas of their life, or this can be major. So, the etiology of sadness is it always goes through the lung official directly into the heart official. So, this person may indeed be a 5CF who you are treating on triple annular pericardium. But unless you resurrect the movement, how do we treat the internal cause of disease? How do we diagnose them? Not from psychology or story or questioning, through observation of the improper movement of qi. Sadness makes the qi disappear from where? The chest. So, zheng qi is the regulatory movement of qi. The opposite is xie qi, perverse, pathogenic or evil qi. Just remember, in Taoism and Chinese medicine, there is no concept of intrinsic evil. Wind is really good outside you. Wind is really good outside the trees. If you get wind inside you, whoops, this is now called evil qi, because now you're going to shake and sway, which is not what a human being is meant to do, right? But there's nothing wrong with the wind intrinsically. So all we have to do is restore the movement of qi. So if you have anger making things rush up, you just restore that official to its regulatory movement of qi. If you have fear making things rushed up, you just restore the regulatory movement of qi. When we have sadness, which is completely inhibited, qi moving in the chest, you have to get the qi moving in the chest. Because unless you get the qi moving, you have no movement of the blood. Blood has no motility, right? So therefore you have no circulation of the spirits around the body. And basically the spirits are probably hovering here saying, what a shame. If you're lucky, they'll be hanging out 25 years later, waiting for something to change so that they can bring you back into the radiance of life. If you're seriously unlucky, they're rather further away. Okay. But you have no hope. You as a practitioner cannot make the spirits come back. You cannot play God. Thank God. You can't. All you can do is sort out the qi and the blood. As Claude Lars says, give the spirits what they like. Sweeties for the spirits, which means properly moving qi, circulating a ton of vital, rich blood. Then they'll go, yummy. Okay. And hopefully they'll relight on the tree of your qi and blood. So, sadness goes through the lung and completely inhibits the heart function. So just working on the pericardium channel itself will not, I repeat, not do this. And even if you did, the kidney chest points and the outer bladder line points and all Renmi points and everything you could do, every damn point that treats triple angiosum and pericardium, it's not going to work. Because you are not dealing with the complete lack of movement of Shin and Shin Bao Wo. So first of all, we have to get the qi moving, and we need to indirectly do something to get lung helping the heart. Heart is the first official, lung is the second official. Okay? If you've got a major issue with heart qi, just make sure you have lung qi manifesting healthily. So obviously those of you that are not treating from a 5-element paradigm, you're going to be doing this more directly, you're not having any concerns, but for 5-element folks, you've still got to get lung and heart. You've got to get the qi moving and then start circulating the blood. So, this is where 337, i.e. bladder 42, 339, i.e. bladder 44. Outer blow line point level with the shear of the lung. Outer blow line point level with the shear of the heart. Good starting place. Start activating. Because we're talking sadness is really inhibits body and mind and spirit, but mainly mind, emotions and spirit. The person may be able to breathe and they may not have palpitations, but in terms of emotions, there's no qi. It's like mental qi or emotional qi or spirit qi is not moving. Mental, emotional, spirit, blood is not moving. But they may not have freezing cold extremities or palpitations or breathlessness or cough, right? Because it's not on a physical level. Get the lung and the heart official working. So, you're still in that instance, you're treating a person on triple energized pericardium, you're still going to use points on the triple energizer and pericardium in the treatment. But you're going to include in each treatment aspects that treats the heart zone directly. So, that's one reality. Yeah?
Would you not use red 17?
Yes, I was going to come on. Yes, but maybe not in the same treatment. But yes, absolutely. We're going to come on to other points. Okay. CV17. CV17 is tan zhong, but CV17 supports the movement in the upper sea of qi, but it may be advisable because the qi has really disappeared. There's unlikely to be very much here. So the suggestion would be, before Ren 17, for example, you would include Ren 6. Ren 6 lower sea of qi, followed by Ren 17 upper sea of qi, because the lower sea of qi basically means the essences, the sea of the essences, which then can provide energy upwards for the lung and the heart to work with. Okay, so then we have the other points which really support the heart. First of all, you have to get the qi moving. So let's throw in another point. If you are happy to do this in this context, obviously, I'm assuming you're working with moxibustion. Don't forget, needles treat qi, moxa treats the blood. Okay, lots of moxibustion. Lung 9. What do you know about lung 9? In what context can you use lung 9 with anyone?
All the pulses are really low.
Yes, but why? What point grouping is it?
Source point.
It's the source point of the lung. No. It's the influential
Point of the meridians.
of the vessels.
Vessels.
Yes, absolutely. The 8 There are actually 8 Hui meeting points. There are lots of different kinds of Hui meeting points. All your reunion, crossing, whatever points are called Hui meeting points. But these are the 8 Hui meeting points, influential points, assembling points, gathering points. People translate it differently. In the red book, you don't have to be worried about being politically incorrect there. They're in the book, and you can use them on anybody. It activates the lungs' ability to help heart, Xin Baluo Tanzhong, the heart zang, which includes those 3, circulate the blood. It supports lung 9, specifically supports the heart official, which don't forget means Xin and Xin Baluo, the heart protector, the inner aspect of the pericardium, to ensure the health of the blood vessels. Okay? So lung 9 will contribute this. You can bring this in. These will bring in the lung. This will bring in the lung. So you want to start off getting the lung, helping the heart specifically, to start moving qi, right? Now we want to strengthen the heart specifically. We need the lung a little bit to start with. Then you follow it up by strengthening the heart in the upper chest. So now you have, of course, if you're still trying to work on the lung and heart, then you have the combination of CV19 and 20. So here is the lung as the canopy over the emperor, and here you have the emperor. So here's the character, here's the canopy that they always talk about over the emperor's carriage or over his chair. That's the lung, and here you have the heart. So Ren 19 treats the heart underneath the canopy of the lung, and Ren 20 treats the canopy of the lung over the heart. So 19 and 20 together treats that dual relationship of lung-heart. So this is something you can incorporate into this treatment. Okay. Obviously all of these are totally fine, even if the rest of your treatment is on triple energized pericardium, because these are all not, points that you can use irrespective of the CF. Okay, now if we just move on, you're trying to really strengthen the heart, and if you want to stay on indirect things, then we have Ren 18, we have CV19, you can look at the combination of CV14 plus 15 together, or governor vessel 24, court of the Shen, or trying to get more light back in here, you could use governor vessel 23, upper stars, connected with seeing light in the darkness, especially at night. If the person says, the nights are awful for me, the evenings and the nights, then governor vessel 23 will enable them to see light in the darkness, upper stars. Okay, Ren 8, CV8, plus CV14, things like that. Once we get the heart stronger in the chest, once we've moved the qi, we've first got to move the qi because sadness inhibits the qi. First get qi into the chest, start moving it, now strengthen the heart official, Xin Baluo in the chest. So, if you want to use points on the heart, incorporate it into your treatment of points on triple energized pericardium, because you're still going to make sure in each treatment you are treating points on triple energized pericardium. Triple energized pericardium, the Tanzhong aspect of the pericardium. if you want to bring in points directly to help this, you can do that. That's your clinical choice. In which case, the ones to go for in this instance is heart 5. Heart 5 treats heart chi. That means it treats shin chi and shin balwo chi. And you have the option, if you feel happy to do this, of using bladder 15, the shoe point of the heart, because that treats all of the 6 functions of the heart official. Therefore, that now is not only treating the chi functions of the heart official, but the blood functions of the heart official, and the health of the vessels, and the creation of the blood, right? Which means it treats shin and shin balwo. So, those would be the 2 sensible ones. Once you've moved beyond, you've got the chi moving, there's more chi in the chest. So to help that, you want to tweak how you're treating triple energized pericardium. So instead of going from pericardium down to triple energizer, for example, if you were going to do bladder 14 and bladder 22 in your treatment, don't go down, go up. Because what does the triple energizer do? Move the chi. Distribute one chi, brings it upwards. If you want to use that triple energizer chi now to help circulate the blood, now we've got more chi in the upper jiao, but now we want to specifically focus it on circulating blood. Combine bladder 22, that's what you would do first, and then do it with 338 Aka bladder 43. Chi, blood circulation through the mai. So you want to think about, if you've got a problem with nothing up here, make sure if you're going from here, you don't go down that way. You go up the front. So you do 617 or 814 or 817 or 417 or 517 of the Ren mai, right? Do mai 412, 48, 414, 812, 14. Okay. These are all things that can get that chi moving and now start circulating the blood. Bladder 22, 338. So, what point on the pericardium is the most important point for pathologies directly involving the heart official, which involves shin and shin balwo, pericardium 6. In this instance, that would be a must to bring into our very first treatment, irrespective of whether you got 337 and 339 and then other things. Pericardium 6. It is, if you look at them now, we've got another point grouping, the 6 source points, or the 6 command points, they're properly called, because you're not going to find the words command points in the way we use them, points between the elbows and the fingertips, the knees and the toes in the classics, except the 6 command points. Well, you're only going to find 4 of them in the classics, because 2 came in the Middle Ages. Okay. Do you know the grouping I'm talking about? Again, you can use these irrespective of the CF. Stomach 36 for the abdomen. 354 Aka bladder 40 for the lumbar area and loins, that means kidney area. Colon 4 for the face, the front of the face, including the jaw, the teeth, the front of the face. Okay, that grouping includes pericardium 6, which is one of the ones that was added in the Middle Ages for the chest, specifically for the chest, because it directly treats the heart official as well as tan zhong official. So that's going to be a really important point. So, let me just look at the character just for a minute. Guan. Really, the frontier gate, it's a kind of slightly funny translation. Barrier is probably better. So this is the inner as opposed to the outer. One of these wonderful yin-yang pairings, an inner and outer, in Chinese medicine. There are loads of points with guan, the character for guan, barrier. For example, the zygomatic bone is a barrier. So stomach 7, which is below, is a barrier. Gallbladder 3 is a barrier. Yes, triple energizer 5 is a barrier. What this fundamentally means is that it only allows zang qi movement. Only the substances that correctly can move through this space can go through. So it keeps inside what needs to stay inside, or in this case in a barrier, or underneath, below, or above. So sometimes we see it with the frontier gate, it's like we more see it as a place of movement, you know, protecting things, but a frontier gate doesn't have that image of holding things where they need to be. So, you know, if we look at bladder 26, just diverting for a minute, one of the main, really important barriers. This is kind of the barrier of source qi on the back, right? It holds the essences and the qi in the lower area, in the lower jiao. And if you have major leaking of essences, either on an anterior or posterior basis, it's like this will barrier it. It will shore up the loins. It shores up the vitality in the essences in the lower jiao. You know, it supports that whole pelvic integrity and the sea of essences there. So the idea of a barrier is it really keeps in what needs to stay in, as well as letting things go out or come in that are appropriate. So it reinforces this. So basically pericardium 6 barriers the qi and blood of the chest. So in a situation where things are dissipating, or the qi has disappeared because of previous sadness, right? And now you're trying to strengthen it, but the tendency is that it's going to dissipate. It will hold enough there that you can create this resource and reservoir to then start using it to circulate the spirits again. But it will hold it here while you're saying, you know, to the spirits, please come back. You know, the patient would love you to be in residence in this area, particularly at Ren 17. So that's why pericardium 6. So we're going to rapidly run out of time. So I'm just going to give you a few things about pericardium points and heart points and other points that you can see can have a little bit more of a moving reality, irrespective of the side of fire that you're mainly treating. So obviously, heart 1. You know you can do this on anybody. But this is where the heart as Lord, if you have a problem with the heart as Lord, you can use this. Disturbance within the void, lack of quietude, chaos is the normal indication for heart 1. You can do on anyone irrespective of the CF, irrespective of those of you that are doing differential diagnosis according to Zhong, Fu or Sanjiao or whatever. Heart 1 when you have chaos. But let's look at it in the fire context. You're trying to influence Xin Xin Bao Luo. Okay, summit, spring. The character for spring brings water deeply from the depths of earth. So this is the gift of earth. Water seen as the medium of life, as Tao containing essences. So this accesses essences from earth, deeply from earth, and brings them up into the land of the Yellow Emperor. So what it does is it provides essences for the Emperor. And the Emperor in you is heart, the heart. Xin and Xin Bao Luo, the Lord and Sovereign. Xin Bao Luo is the Sovereign. Xin is the Lord. Under the summit, the character is under the benevolent auspices of heaven. So this puts the person back in the medium void, puts the heart back on the throne, in quietude, provided with Jing, and under the auspices of heaven, Shen. So it brings things. So if we have pathology which is adversely impacting the heart, so think about what we said about excitation. Everything rushes up, the essences are kind of being lost and leaking out, and the person becomes chronically exhausted.
Which point is this?
Heart 1.
Heart 1, yeah.
Heart 1,
Yeah.
okay? Summit, spring, okay? This is a major point. Not chaos. Now you've got chronic exhaustion from, yes, when the person's in excitation, you've got chaos. But now you've got this kind of flat, exhausted, weary, spirit down result, because it has basically lost the qi and the blood. Okay, let's be seriously controversial and talk about heart 2, blue-green ling. Now, I strongly suggest you do not do this, you know, in people you are treating predominantly on triple energized pericardium, you know, maybe ever, or without having got more experience. But I just want to put in a plea, because some of the people you're treating on heart, small intestine, if you're not using heart 2, then you may have a problem. Blue-green is the color of life. Ling. You need to know which heart points are Ling and which heart points are Shen. When you read the translation of spirit, and you don't know whether it's Ling spirit or Shen spirit, it's much more difficult for you to know how to use them. Shen is source light, is yang, is golden light, radiance. Ling is reflective spirit. Heaven's spirit incarnating within you for your lifetime. It is more yin. It is brilliant white light. Okay. So were you talking about you want the influences from heaven directly, from the undifferentiated grand Shen, or from that within you, taking shape and form, engaging your life? So, every other tradition, you can kneel this. So, just be really careful. Why there's a caution about heart 2 is, unlike the lung channel, which is just lateral to the border of the biceps, heart 2, you have to go in a hollow, furrow, groove, whatever you want to call it, which is itself is medial to the biceps. So your lung points are real tight. Your heart 2, you've got to come off the edge into something which is off the edge. Otherwise you're going to hit the artery. Ick yuck. Okay. That's why there's a caution. But absolutely, you can use heart 2. You can mox the heart 2. So heart 2, same location in every tradition. Just in case you don't know this, moxa numbers 3 to 7, fendet 3 to 5. Once you've got that energy from coming up from earth, heart 1, now we want that manifesting in the healthy life of you, like blue-green limb. So, if we're really talking about the heart-blood reality, if you need to go to the heart-blood, you've got shock, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, the major point is heart 7. Just know that heart 4 is Ling Dao, so the way of Ling, so it's a Ling spirit point. Okay, heart 5, Qi, major Qi point, translated as realizing the Li, character for the Li. It's what you have, all the characters that have mile. It's not a mile, it's not a distance. If you were going to call it a distance, it would be less than a third of a mile. But it's a village of 8. 8 is symbolic. Everything, a village of 8 families, which means you're never going to have intermarriage and degeneration of the Jing. 8 means the whole of the known universe. All of their houses, all of the buildings for all of their animals, all of their fields, all of their crops, sustainability of life, in the middle of which you have the well, any character that has well in it. This is not water. In Chinese medicine, it is all the gifts of earth. Gas, right? Shale, fracking, all that kind of stuff. Peat, minerals, salts, as well as water. All natural resources. And in the middle of the Li, this village of 8, you have the well always. So realizing the Li, this is the sustainability of your life by the strengthening of heart Qi. Okay, heart 7, Shen Men. This is the gate of Shen, right? Blood, heart blood. Okay, and pericardium. I've been given my warning. Okay, heaven spring, pericardium 2. Will also treat the heart by virtue of the spring. This thing of coming up into the realm of the yellow emperor. That can have a direct effect on the heart. Pericardium 4, gap gate. Gap means void. This has an effect on the heart, quietening the void, an auspicious moment or opportunity. Pericardium 5 is much more Tanzhong because it's interval messenger. Tanzhong is resident and envoy. The messenger is the envoy. So 4 can treat both. 5 treats Tanzhong. 6 treats Xin Xin Bao Luo more. Any burning questions? Yes.
Sorry. Sometimes I'm drawn to bladder 45 where the brief for sadness. Is that related or am I barking up the wrong tree?
Bladder 45. You mean 340?
I don't know what it is in
Yeah, 340. Whale of grief.
Yeah.
Okay, no. That's a funny translation. Responsive outcry. It's the first cry. It comes from the interface of the liver and the lung. When you're born, everybody wants the baby to cry, right? To utter a cry. That's the cry. It's a response to birth. It comes from the liver and the lung, particularly in terms of emotions. This is an enormously important point. When you have oppression, the lung can have oppression, the liver can have oppression, the spleen can have oppression, the heart can have oppression, every official.
So it's more
Not
pressing than participation.
Yes, it's like it gets you, if something is stuck. So you could possibly, after you've got the chi and blood moving, if the person is still finding it difficult to engage with life, you could possibly use that. Okay, I hope I've given you enough that it's like you can go away and think of this, read more about the points, and just say to yourself, if what you're doing is working, leave it alone. But particularly if you're treating someone on triple angiosed pericardium and it's not quite cutting it, just think. Start off, be safe. Use one of the heart points that you could use on anyone, or use indirect points that help the heart. Because what will happen is they've had all this treatment on triple angiosed pericardium, sometimes for centuries, 30 plus years, okay? You do one thing with the intention of specifically treating the heart and their responses. Why hasn't no one done this before? They can immediately feel a difference. And you maybe, sometimes, you bring in a couple of heart points, heart 5 maybe, or heart 7, or heart 1, or bladder 15 or something, even though you're mainly treating points in the triple energized and pericardial channels. And sometimes within 3 months their whole life has changed, and then forevermore you can just treat them on triple energized pericardium because you've got the heart back, you've got the heart, Shin and Shin Balwa. Now they've got the protection. Now they realize strength comes through vulnerability, not through hiding. So really look at it and try simple, safe things. Don't go do Governor Vessel 10 and 11. That's the first thing, right? Without serious prayers. No, those are a little bit not stable, right, as a way to treat the heart. But heart 7, source point, try it. The person says, bingo, okay, now you can do that. You may need to do that for longer. You may need to do it for less. But I think it's enormously going to help some of the folks. And the same is true. You have physical things, which we never got to look at, but you have somebody with mega palpitations, or you have somebody with congestive heart failure. You treat on triple energized pericardium, they're now 92, serious congestive heart failure. I'd rather you're clinically effective. You're gonna need to use some points which directly speak to Shin and Shin Balwa, because then they can live to 105. Thank you very much.